What up, Long Beach? Welcome back to your home for everything local sports. It's JJ. This is the podcast playoffs edition. Playoffs?
It's bracket day, baby. We got the whole crew around the table. Super excited to spin this around and check out all the local games. This is Mike, co-sports editor of the Press Telegram and the Gazettes. We are joined by Julian and Matt. And this podcast, like everything we do, is brought to you by Naples Rib Company.
13 teams across 7 divisions here in the CIF Southern Section. 11 games we will be covering on Friday night. 9 of them are at home. Love it.
Yeah, this is easily the most generous bracket draw in terms of opponent and mileage that I can remember us ever having, really.
So we're going to roll out all the divisions one at a time, starting at the top. Obvi, Division number 1, we have got Long Beach Poly and St. John Bosco in there. We're going to start with St. John Bosco, defending CIF Southern Section and state champions. They're going to take on Bishop Amat in that first round game at El Camino College.
Yeah, this is exactly where we thought they were going to be. Sort of the way that the bracket rules go, the Trinity League teams kind of have to host the non-Trinity League teams. And so with Bosco getting Amat, I'm kind of excited. I mean, this is maybe a bigger game for the San Gabriel Valley Tribune than for the Press Telegram. I know Fred Robledo over there really hyped it up the last time they played. Bosco ended up winning that game pretty comfortably. I would expect this. It feels more like a first-round game than a second-round game. Wouldn't you say, Jage?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about this Amat team, man. I mean, they've only averaged 170 yards passing a game. They've only averaged 157 yards rushing a game. If you're going to try to score with Bosco, you have got to produce more yardage than that. That's the bottom line.
Well, because you're going against the sophomore sensation quarterback, DJ Uiagalele. He's thrown for over 300 yards, multiple touchdowns in his last 3 games. Had over 320 yards in Bosco's win over JSerra on Friday. Perhaps their most complete Trinity League game. So this Bosco offense is clicking at the right time.
Absolutely. There's no time in which you look at DJ and you're like, look at that sophomore out there. He just doesn't play like a sophomore. He plays like a vet. He has such the calm, cool, and collected attitude that looks natural to him.
I would just say, everyone's talking about Mater Dei as the runaway favorite in this division this year, and I would not disagree with that based on everything we've seen from Mater Dei.
We watched Bosco play Mater Dei. We were right there for it.
They're really, really good, and they've played a national schedule and won everything. But I would point out Bosco was basically in this exact same place last year, coming in as a 3 seed, looking at playing possibly Corona Centennial in the semifinals and then Mater Dei in the championship. And Jason Negro told us he kind of feels similarly. Like, it's nice that they have made the move with DJ at quarterback a month ago, so they've had a month through the whole Trinity League schedule to get used to that new offense, the new downfield style. And he said they feel really good. I think they feel very similar to the way they did last year when they came in as the second-place Trinity League team, but ended up winning the championship.
Well, you mentioned scheduling. Bosco clearly played the more difficult schedule this season. They started with one of the best teams in the country in St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida.
I think Mater Dei did, I've always thought Mission Viejo was the best at this, but Mater Dei did a really good job of scheduling games against big-name teams that weren't as good as they usually are this year.
Well, that's tough because some of those are decided years in advance. I mean, if you knew that...
No, but when they go schedule Bishop Gorman this year, right? You know Tate Martell's not the quarterback. So when you really go hang one on Bishop Gorman, I think everyone who's not necessarily following everything very closely goes, wow, they must be just unbelievable. And you go, okay, well, it's a different Bishop Gorman team. That being said, like I said, I think they're the clear-cut favorite. And I do think, I would say that much more so than last year, I think that they're the clear-cut favorite. Because just everything we've seen from them, they upgraded all the things that were weaknesses last year.
Someone asked me today at the bracket rollout if Bosco could beat Corona Centennial. And my answer was, if that game is on Friday, I'm taking Bosco. So
yeah, right.
I guess we're all saying that we're predicting a Bosco Mater Dei rematch in the title game.
I mean, I think that the Division One, there's maybe a little bit more parity in the bracket this year than there has been in
who scares you?
Years, in my
Cucamonga?
opinion. Well, I would just say I think that there's more teams with a puncher's shot. But yeah, I mean, it would take an upset to me for it to not be Mater Dei Bosco again.
Without question, considering they are the 2 teams from the best league, and again, the Trinity League dominating Division 1. Every Trinity League team playing a playoff game.
They've only got
Friday
6
night.
of the 16 teams in there, including their 6th-place team.
We all knew this was coming, right? A few years ago, we were talking about them creating a private school-only bracket. I guess this is the closest we're going to get until they actually do that.
Well, and this is kind of their point, though, is like, well, why bother doing that if you could just have... If Poly and Corona Centennial can play in Division 1 with these teams, why would you take Corona Centennial? Why would you have it be Poly versus Corona Centennial for the championship every year in the public school division? You can just have this be the Trinity League division with a couple public schools that are good enough to play with them.
Speaking of Poly at Vets taking on JSerra. Julian, you got a chance to see JSerra last week, as we just mentioned Bosco. Bosco laid it down on the Lions on the road.
Yeah, JSerra, they struggled, to say the least, last week against St. John Bosco, but Al Fisher, a Long Beach native, JSerra running back, he's going to go against his former teammate, Jermaine Lollet, when they were at Paramount together, so that's going to be pretty fun to watch. But Poly at home at Vets, coming off of that loss against Serra, they're going to come out, I think they're going to have a little chip on their shoulder.
I mean, JSerra is the 9th team in the state. There's no place to hide in this bracket.
No, there's absolutely not. But that being said, I think a lot of Poly fans who don't necessarily know the rules as well as maybe, we've been to a lot of these bracket day events. I heard people after that loss to Poly played at Gardena Serra, the other Serra, on Friday night. JJ and I went to that game. Kind of a disappointing effort for the Jackrabbits, I would say, especially offensively for the first 3 quarters of the game. After that game, everyone's coming up to us like, oh, are they going to send us to Corona Centennial? What's going to happen? So, no. You're going to get a home team. It's going to be against one of the bottom 3 teams from the Trinity League, and that's exactly what happened. They get 4th place JSerra. There is no place to hide because, like you said, they're the 4th place team in the league, but they're number 9 in the state of California. We're not in Iowa, okay? We're not in Nebraska. This is the state of California. They're number 9 in the state. If Poly can come out, learn from the mistakes of that Serra game, run the no-huddle offense, try and get a little bit more up-tempo, and then rely on their defense to play well, they certainly have, I would call them a narrow favorite in this game. I'd say that if you seed this thing out, it looks like Poly at 8, JSerra at 9, right? And which, Poly gets the home game for being the league champ. I certainly think that they've got a very good chance. The question's just going to be, do they come out the way they came out against Serra?
First quarter is so important.
In which case they are not going to do well in this game.
Serra has lost 3 straight games. JSerra, has lost 3 straight games. And we know this Poly team is a roller coaster. They've got a roller coaster season. They've got roller coaster personalities. Whoever has success in the first quarter is my odds-on favorite to win not only that game, but perform well the next week as well.
That's a good point. The fact that it is a JSerra team that has kind of loaded up on Long Beach guys in recent years gives it a little bit of extra flavor. That's some local reporting, fans outside of our area might not necessarily be aware of. But I think that's a lot of Serra players with 562 in the Twitter bio. So I think there'll be some sort of regional rivalry as well, even though the teams aren't really close or particularly related in any way.
We've obviously written a bunch of stories about the CIF playoff equity where teams are now changing divisions year to year to kind of make everything, quote, a little bit more fair. Poly was on that line. They were very close to being a Division II team. Is Long Beach Poly football playing for their Division I lives on Friday?
Well, interesting question. It sort of implies, number one, that they want to remain in Division I, which I think if you're a smart Poly fan, you would way rather be in this Division II bracket than playing modern day Week 2, right?
Yeah, but how many times have we seen an elite program scoff at a Division II playoffs?
Yeah.
Sometimes the division you're in matters more to elite programs.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I think that the way things are going, Poly football, similar to Wilson water polo, or even Moore League baseball, the time has come to understand that with the way things are in the Moore League right now, the success and the championships are more likely to come in a lower division than they are in Division I. If you look at the Division II bracket and you look at the Division I bracket, if I'm a Poly football fan who wants to go to a game on the Friday after Thanksgiving, I'd rather be in that Division II bracket. There's no question about it. You're right, and I've heard, I would say 50-50 reaction from Poly fans and coaches and administrators where some of them are like, yeah, we don't have the resources of these teams. We don't send people can talk about, we got a transfer from Los Angeles. We don't send a bus around to pick kids up from all around Southern California the way some of these Trinity League schools are able to do. They've got a couple big guys who came in and kind of kept them in this Division I level in terms of talent. But if you look at the lower levels, they had to cancel a JV program this year. If I'm a Poly person, I'd 100% hope that they're in Division II next year, regardless of what happens. That being said, I'm sure that none of those fans are rooting for them to lose on Friday. So maybe you make a good point, Jage. If they lose, maybe those fans should take it as consolation. Well, okay, there's pretty much no way they can keep us in Division I now.
Poly and Bosco both at home. Time changes are a thing in playoffs, so make sure you come back to the websites, our Twitter feed, our Facebook feed, so we can update you on when these games are going to be played. That Poly JSerra game is going to be on TV as well. Moving on, we're going to go division by division. D2 Mighty Ducks. Division 2, we've got two teams, two very dangerous teams, if I do say so. Los Alamitos and La Mirada. Los Alamitos going to be at home against Norco. We're not sure if that game's going to be Thursday or Friday. So
home
again,
is sort of a nebulous concept there. They're not playing it on their campus field. We know that they're not playing it on Friday at Vets, so they're either going to be Thursday at Vets, Friday at Cerritos College, or whatever. But make sure, like JJ just said, follow us on Twitter to find out. We'll let you know as soon as we hear.
La Mirada is at Heritage. That's a tough game for La Mirada. However, if I'm Heritage, I'm pissed. That might be the best second seed out of a league in this bracket, if not in the southern section, because La Mirada's record of 5-5 does not reflect how quality that team is. And Angel Favela, a senior running back, streaking like he is over 1,000 yards with ease this year, that's dangerous if I'm Heritage.
Switching to Los Al, their defense, 22 points in league. Jared Bell from Norco, he's committed to Alabama, so that's going to be a tough test for the Griffins, who are looking to make some noise in this tough
Griffins exercise that demon against Edison. I think that's almost more important than where they get placed in this bracket, because mentally, to be able to beat that Edison team, your rival in your league, to win your league for the first time in a couple of years, is really a huge hurdle for them to get over. And they're finally healthy, right? They've got their full complement of offensive talent ready to go. And they've had playoff success. They haven't won a title in a really long time since Barnes was a kid, haha. But they've had success in the playoffs. These kids know how to win. They've shown it this year. They've played good teams. They opened up the season against Poly. So I think, honestly, La Mirada and Los Al might be our two biggest dark horses in a very stacked division in D2.
I think Los Al for sure has a run. The one thing that we haven't necessarily mentioned, they do have that top-end talent as well. When you talk about those lower divisions, that to me, even starting in Division 2, is where a kid like Isaiah Johnson or a Keanu Norman can be the huge difference maker.
I mentioned Favela, La Mirada, same thing.
Absolutely. So to me, that's what I look at. I know we were really hoping Compton would get into the Division 12 bracket because a kid like Christian Swint, who's got some Pac-12 offers, he could just be a superstar in the Division 12 bracket.
Yeah.
So I can see the same thing for Norman and Johnson happening in that D2.
They are at the same side of the bracket as well, so we could definitely see that as a possible semifinal matchup. Los Al La Mirada in the semifinals, that would be awesome. They actually played in the playoffs recently, so it would be Julian. That's what Julian wanted to say. I took the cue card right out of his hands. Sorry, buddy.
No words to say.
Obviously, like we said, you got to come back for the updates on all of these brackets as we get going into Division 4, where Downey got a great draw. Because if you consider the fact that Downey didn't even win their league, Paramount won the SGVL for the first time in a while.
Arguably say that Downey got the better draw.
Right? Arguably, without question, Mike, they're playing a 3-7 Etiwanda team, third place in the baseline.
But what I look at more so is that second round matchup down the road. Paramount, interesting. We'll talk about Paramount later, but interesting draw for them. But tough second round game for Paramount, whereas Downey, that thing lays out a little bit down there in Division 4 for the Vikings.
Without question. You look at the Baseline League and the San Gabriel Valley League to start, right? You would assume that the higher quality league would be the San Gabriel Valley League, and Etiwanda just hasn't had a good year as a football team. I'm sorry. They're 1-4 at home. They're on a 3-game losing streak. Downey is feeling great right now. Coach Jack Williams said that loss to Paramount that decided the league title ultimately really woke his team up, and now they're healthy, they're hungry, and they've got something to prove in the playoffs.
And they got a 1-2 duo of Kajan Foots and Barack Ross. Foots, 16 passing touchdowns, 13 rushing touchdowns. Barack Ross, 1,500 rushing yards, 21 touchdowns. This Viking offense is explosive. Just hung 50 points on Gahr on Thursday. So Vikings, they're headed into the right direction. Right at playoff time. That
Corona Del Mar game, a possible second-round matchup, is really cool because those are two teams, like I said, that have had success in the playoffs, been to championship games over the last few years, and a real clash of styles there in CDM and Downey, so that could be interesting. But Downey's got to take care of business first, like I said, at home against Etiwanda in the first round of Division 4. We move on to Division 5, where we have got a double dip. He dipped the chip once. Then he dipped it again. Paramount and Wilson I love this, dude. I love local matchups like this. I mean, Paramount and Wilson played each other for like, what, 4 or 5 years straight? And I covered all of those games.
Right.
I'm very familiar with these two football programs, as are the readers of the Press Telegram and the Gazettes.
No-brainer for JJ to be at the Bosco game on Friday, but the Paramount-Wilson game will be missing the Fiddler video touch because that was your guaranteed game for quite a while there on the double-up. Yeah, that was always I would say that was one of those rivalries that I would say was kind of violent. I mean, there were always injuries in it. It was always kind of nasty.
Yep.
It made for great games.
And really, the game was early in the season, so you kind of got a coming out party for fill in the blank. Like, Josh Wise wasn't Josh Wise until he put up 200 at Paramount in the loss, right? Like, Cedric Hood, the quarterback at Paramount, he had a coming out party against Wilson. So it's really cool that these two teams have kind of followed the same path. Wilson had a magical year last year, right? Great year, go to the semifinals, but they only brought 4 returning starters back. So they are young, and they are trying to learn in the playoffs, where Paramount brought back a bunch of guys who have had disappointing playoff losses. So if you're looking at who you think has the edge here, I'd give it to Paramount, to the point which I think Paramount could go on a run here. I think a Paramount defense that is probably the best in the area at that level, in that division, can carry them to a championship.
Well, yeah, Paramount is the 2 seed in that bracket. I think it definitely lays out. They'd get the winner of Valencia Placentia and the mighty
Pumas.
Chaparral Pumas. But looking ahead, yeah, I mean, this thing does lay out. I'll be very curious to see how the coin flips go a little bit later Sunday afternoon to see if they'd be... So here's just a real quick interesting thing. I think if you're a team like Paramount or Bosco, I think you're hoping you lose that coin flip.
Yes.
Because you feel good about the second round game. The 2 teams that they would potentially be playing are both 6-4 in the second round. So go on the road to Valencia or Chaparral, and then come home for your semifinal game against most likely Lawndale, who is the 3 seed, and then just kind of see how it breaks out from there.
Look, this Paramount defense is allowing like 14 points a game, right? They're opportunistic. They get turnovers. They can do something in the playoffs because if they don't, this team might be in trouble. I don't think they can outscore teams. So their defense really is the key to their success in the playoffs.
What's up, guys? It's Matt Simon. We're going to move on to Division 8. Valley Christian and Millikan both in there. I'm really excited about this bracket. Valley Christian, Millikan, both local teams on opposite sides of the bracket, but I'm really excited about this Millikan Rams team led by first-year coach Justin Utupo. He's really set the tone this year and turned things around after going 1-9 last year. They're 8-2. Heading to the playoffs for the first time since 2009.
First time since 2009. They're going to host a playoff game for the first time since 1986.
It's the first time they've won 8 games since 1986.
8 games.
It's unbelievable.
It's in 30 years. I mean, these kids were definitely not born when last time Millikan football was doing this, so we called it a renaissance in a recent article, and it really has been. Utupo showing what we've known for a couple years, and I feel like it's time we write an article about it. The way to return the Moore League to Moore League supremacy is the Moore League. You have to get people who've got skin in the game, who understand the local area, to come back and rebuild these things. Utupo went to Lakewood, went to Notre Dame, came back to the local area, and is now showing that Lakewood style that took them to back-to-back CIF semifinals in 2009 and 2010. He's taking it to Millikan, and it's working.
Well, we talked to a Millikan player this year who said the difference between playing last year and then this year under first-year head coach Justin Utupo is that Utupo scouting is such that every time he tells them something's going to happen, it happens. And so when you see that start to happen over and over again, then you really start to trust your coaches and trust your system. That's why, to me, even if Bosco goes on and wins, every championship ahead of him, even if someone else does that, to me, when we talk about our Dream Team Coach of the Year award at the end of the year, I'm going to say Justin Utupo can be no worse than the co-Dream Team Head Coach of the Year, because this guy took a 1-9 team from last year, basically got no big transfers in, lost the starting quarterback, who was good, in Keyshawn Foots, and goes 8-2 with a team that was 1-9 last year. There's not many situations where you can say, wow, that's coaching, but that's coaching.
No doubt about it. And they're doing it with a group of guys who are going to be back next year. It's not like he's got a loaded stack of seniors. These are juniors up and coming. QCC's a sophomore who has obviously seen the game a lot better as the season got longer. And they've got dudes on defense. Skinner, Lombardi, this team is set up for a playoff run. And Mike, to our credit, we saw it coming.
Yeah, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much here, but we loved this hire. We raved about it when they hired Utupo, even though he is only 25 years old. We'd say, hey, we were 23 when we started our first sports website. Were we going to hold a guy being 25 against him? It's obviously worked out. I do hope that this is, I was just talking to him at CIF today, he said they're trying to get him on campus, he's enrolling in a teacher credential program. I completely agree with JJ. These are the kind of guys, young local community leaders, that the LBUSD and the Moore League need to look to if they're serious about rebuilding the sports program, especially in football. This is who you need, and boy, it's been a lot of fun to be a part of it. And I'm super excited to see where they go too. What's interesting when we look across the bracket at Valley Christian is one of the coordinators at Valley Christian was Millikan's coach the last time they were in the playoffs, which, by the way, was also Utupo's senior year at Lakewood. So it would be very interesting to
shout
see
him out.
If Kirk Diego and the Valley Christian Crusaders...
It's Kirk Diego, guys. Kirk Diego, one of the best
over there.
Coach voices of all time.
Absolutely, and one of our favorite coaches ever.
He's the best.
An awesome guy, a big part of the revolution over there at Valley Christian. They're 8-2 with another league championship this year. I believe that's the first time in school history that they won 3 consecutive league titles. They've been making history every week, it seems like, for the Crusaders. They're 8-2.
Won that title last year for the first time since '96.
Yep, they're hosting 7-3 Notre Dame of Riverside, the 2 seed coming out of the Ambassador League, and the Crusaders are certainly set up for a long run as well on kind of the same formula they used last year. We got a couple playmakers that can really make some noise down there in a Division 8 bracket.
Hurd, Joseph, that offense, they can definitely put up some stats. We might have gotten clip of the year from Darian Green on Friday night, last Friday. What would you even call that? Because it's not a hurdle.
A whoops-a-daisy.
It's a
loop-de-loo.
You know what it is? It's the high jump before the Fosbury flop. He just trying to go over straight forward.
Yeah, but there was no sawdust on the other side. Yeah, he jumped up. If you haven't seen this, he jumped from the 4-yard line, somersaults over a guy, lands on the ball with the nose of it just across the goal line for a touchdown. I think was kind of the overwhelming number one.
I'm not going to put it on the video. You have to go find it.
Yeah, I think it was. It's up on our YouTube channel. Go check that out.
It's on our YouTube. It's up on our Twitter. It's everywhere on SCPL. SoCal Prep Legends Play of the Week.
Oh, yeah, and he only had 104 tackles and 16 tackles for a loss this year. So that was a culmination of a great year. But Isaac Joseph, the senior quarterback, he doesn't get the recognition sometimes as Gio Hurd or Darian Green. But the guy quietly, 1,624 yards, 27 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, also has 6 touchdowns rushing. So Woody Grayson, he builds the offensive playbook for around Joseph. It's not all these big, 80-yard passes. It's just a little, these short throws. So the Crusaders, they're looking to go back-to-back and coming off of that big win over Heritage Christian in the Olympic League Championship game.
Yeah, what a great game to have right before the playoffs, right? You kind of get that playoff taste. Speaking of which, we go to Division 9, where we have 3 teams in Division 9, 2 of them playing each other. St. Anthony is going to be hosting Norwalk, and Mayfair is going to be at home taking on Chaffey. All 3 of those teams coming into the playoffs after big wins. Let's start with St. Anthony and Norwalk. St. Anthony won its league title, their 3rd in the last 4 years, with a big win on Friday night. And I don't know if we've mentioned it with other teams. I think Downey is in a similar situation, but St. Anthony was banged up for most of this year. I mean, and not just banged up injury-wise, they were missing like really, really important guys, like Etiwanda on the line, my guy, Big Simba. And now he's back.
That's my guy.
All of a sudden, guess what happens?
That's my guy.
Oh, the running game's back. Oh, Deshaun can actually move around in the pocket without running for his life. Like, these little things in these lower divisions are going to mean so much. And I think St. Anthony, a defending CIF champion, won their first in, almost 70 years last year. I think that experience last year makes them an extremely dangerous team in this division.
I completely agree. 2 very good coaching staffs of those teams, 2 teams that we know very well. I would just point out, because we do know both of them really well, it's been a lot of fun to see guys like BJ Busby and Rashad Penny going back and forth on Twitter about it. I would say there's some crossover there between the recruiting pools for those 2 teams, some guys who know each other, and also an interesting clash of styles. But obviously the team in Division 9 that we're really looking for, that we've kind of had circled on our playoff plans for a couple months at this point, is Mayfair. They are the 3 seed in this bracket, coming off an undefeated Suburban League championship. They are 9-1 overall, hosting 5-5 Chaffey, the at-large from my least favorite league name, the Mount Baldy League.
Mayfair loves this draw.
Oh, they
loves
should.
this
They
draw.
should love this draw. They would have Woodbridge or Aliso Niguel in the quarterfinals, and then likely second-seeded Burroughs, unless St. Anthony or Norwalk pulls an upset off there in the semifinals. The top seed in that bracket is the real team to beat, undefeated Aquinas, the league champions from the Ambassador League. I think this shapes up well for Mayfair. And when we talk about the other teams that we saw win championships last year, like St. Anthony and Valley Christian, to me, this Mayfair team reminds me more of those teams than any of our other lower division teams, because they have a big-time stud in Chris Adamora, who could go to just about any college west of the Mississippi he wants to. And they're well coached. They got the team together. They built it around this class. And I think this could really be a year that people at Mayfair are talking about for decades to come.
And they're having fun doing it, too.
They're not scared of anyone. They went toe-to-toe with Santa Margarita for, 2.5 quarters, Santa Margarita in Division I. So whoever comes in Mayfair's way, Coach Bedell is going to have that team ready. But if we could have a semifinal of Mayfair against the winner of St. Anthony Norwalk, oh boy, would that be great.
Oh, boy. What do you think the most likely matchup, the latest in the playoffs, we're going to get local teams, right? So, like, for example, in this situation, we could see a Mayfair, St. Anthony, or Norwalk in the semifinals. Is that the latest we're going to get? Could we get a championship? Could we get a local championship matchup?
The only way we could see it would be a championship. To be honest with you, I don't really see it happening unless someone's going to have to. Someone in any bracket would basically have to upset the top seed.
Let's rewind to Division 8.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
Valley Christian Millikan. I definitely feel like both those teams can make it that far. Both teams, different styles, but I think that may be the closest shot we get at a championship being a local one.
Oh, my gosh. Can we do, 5 stories on Kirk Diego if that happens?
Oh, yeah.
Can we do that? Can we just, follow him around for a day?
But to be honest with you, if Millikan's able to get past Northview and then they beat 9-1 Silverado, they've got to beat Grace Brethren, that would be a huge deal for the Rams. And at that point, Justin Utupo might get hired to a Trinity League team before the season ends.
Right? Wow, what a job.
Hey, and if Millikan wins their first round, if they beat Northview and then they play Silverado, maybe Kirk Diego and Valley Christian can help them out, because Valley Christian beat Silverado in the Division IX championship last year.
Right? Yeah, Kirk Diego actually did help Millikan out earlier this year. He gave them his homework, quote unquote, on the wing tee, which if you're going to get homework for the wing tee from somebody, Kirk Diego's definitely top 5 in the area to get it.
It worked out.
Kirk,
he sent him a PowerPoint.
Calvin Bryant, Raul Lara, Thad McNeil. These were the guys that were coaching more league football when Mike and I were just breaking in 2008 and 2009. So we will always have a special place in our heart for those guys, because they were always so inclusive with us. You know what I mean? And now we are looking at them at other places, but it's always nice to see a familiar face there on Friday night on the sideline.
All right, we're not quite done yet. We got one more game to break down. Division 10, Gahr visiting Santa Fe. Here's an intriguing one. This is the bottom. This is the lowest team we have. The lowest division that we're going to be covering is this Division 10 bracket. And I think if you're Gahr, you kind of like your chances going on the road against Santa Fe. Gahr 7-3, the 3 seed out of the San Gabriel Valley team. Santa Fe is 6-4, but the champions of the Del Rio League. But Gahr has, in my opinion, and Micah Bernard, kind of what we were talking about with some of these other guys, where he could be the one player that's a total difference maker in a Division 10 bracket that could lead them to an upset of Santa Fe, which would mean that they would most likely be playing Dos Pueblos, which is the number 2 seed, fittingly, in Division 10.
We're fired up, man. We're ready to go. Playoffs starting on Friday. Let's whip it around the horn. Let's talk some bold predictions. Matt, I think you kind of already said yours, right? Millikan and Valley Christian in the championship?
Yep. In the Division 8, I feel like Millikan.
Appleby Matt Simon over there, as bold as can be.
That's my bold prediction, and that's my dream matchup.
I like that. Yeah, let's do dream matchups too. So bold prediction, dream matchup. Mike, what do you got?
My bold prediction is going to be a Los Alamitos versus Upland Division II CIF Championship. I think Los Alamitos, to me, I've had this conversation with a couple of the other Division I coaches that we cover. To me, Los Alamitos is always a team. Ray Fenton gets 100% out of his roster. I've talked to a couple of JC coaches about that as well. And I think that he has a roster this year that could make some noise. I think that they will have to beat Calabasas in the semifinals, which I think will be a big game. And I'm not going to necessarily predict how I think they do against a very good Upland team. But I think Los Al is definitely, to me, the dark horse that could make that run all the way to a championship game. As far as a dream matchup, for me, that's pretty obvious. We just found out Poly won the coin flip against Mater Dei. So for Poly to host Mater Dei in the second round of the playoffs, that's one where obviously by all projections, most people would assume that Mater Dei would win that game comfortably. But I think having the number 1 team in the country in Long Beach for a second-round playoff game, when that's a historic rivalry, the only 2 teams to ever play for 3 consecutive CIF championships against each other, that would be pretty exciting.
I need that to be a color rush game. I need all green, all red.
Christmas
Merry
comes
Christmas.
early.
Let's friggin' get it.
Christmas in mid-November.
It's going to be an old school matchup. Us and Mater Dei. Julian, what's your bold prediction, buddy?
The playoffs, I think, they're going to be really fun.
Okay. This is Julian. They don't call him the best color man in the business.
Well, hold on. I'm going over to University Trophy to get an unlabeled participation trophy for Julian.
Yikes.
Actually, my true bold prediction, I was thinking this since after, week 0. The team that came out last year that was an underdog, or we didn't really think, was Valley Christian. This year, I think it's the year of the fair. So I think Mayfair is going to win the Division 9 title. And the dream matchup I want, Mayfair Aquinas, the 2 clear top teams in Division 9.
Love that.
I'm rolling with the fair.
I like that. I like that a lot. I got to go Downey, man. Downey is my dark horse in that they're not a top 4 seed in that Division 4 bracket. But like I mentioned earlier, they're getting healthy. They were woken up by not winning their share of their, or at least a share of their 7th straight league title. Kajan Foots is really got that offense going. Barack Ross is a boss, over 1,500 yards rushing this year. Their defense is good. They're kind of clicking at the right time. They've got a good draw, like we said. I don't know. I see Downey making a run. And also, I got to be honest with you, man, that call in the CIF championship game 4 years ago that cost Downey a possible championship, a call that will live in infamy, really still sticks in my craw, man. And I need to see Downey get back to a CIF championship just so that I don't have to reference that anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean. You need to get the mark on the right side of the ledger to balance that out. And unfortunately, sports usually don't work that way, as we both know. What's your dream matchup?
My dream matchup is another Bosco Corona Centennial semifinal.
I mean, I can't argue with that. That was game of the year last year.
Jason
Negro
said it's the best game he's ever been involved in.
He's right.
That's crazy.
I'm just going to tell you right now, he's correct.
What an unbelievable game that was. Real Metro has had a tough year this year, but he did some things in that game last year that I think got him the offers and the spot in that Elite 11. Because that game was one of those games where every time you thought you knew what was going to happen, you were impressed with what actually happened. And we had very high expectations for that game. Somehow it lived up to the hype.
So this isn't much of a bold prediction, but I am actually going to echo something Julian just said, which is I do think we're going to have really, really exciting games up and down these brackets. This competitive equity format is now in its 2nd year, and last year, people talk a lot about the competitive equity thing about before the brackets come out. Who's going to get in? Oh, this 1-9 Crespi team gets in. Oh, a 3rd place team doesn't get in. But to me, if you look at the games that we got last year, they were much better. It was much better for the Moore League, for Wilson to have a chance to go on a semifinal run, for Millikan to have a chance to win some games, as opposed to if they were being sent to Bosco this week. I think it's great. I think that the games have been a lot better, and now that it's in its 2nd year and we've had a year of shuffling in this format, I think they're going to be even better. We're going to see a lot of upsets. We're going to see a lot of close games throughout all 13 of these brackets. I'm pretty excited for it.
And here's hoping we have what we had last year. 3 CIF champions. Last year we had Bosco, we had
St. Anthony,
and Valley Christian. So here's hoping we have a lot in the Long Beach area.
Yeah, I mean, if I put the over under 2.5 CIF championships for our area, I'd take the over.
Well,
I just think that's the right side of that bet.
It's going to be interesting. One thing I'll also say is not at all a bold prediction is we are about to crush this coverage this week. We're going to have features, previews, all kind of breakdowns coming your way all week as we get ready for the first week of the playoffs, and I am fired the bleep up about it.
Amen, brother. Thanks always to all of our sponsors, Naples Brib we mentioned earlier, Papa Lucci's, everybody else, at the Gazette and the Press Telegram who help us produce the websites and the newspapers day in, day out. This is why we have this job. Football playoffs. It just does not get much better than this, and we are ready for it. For Mike, for Julian, for Matt, for the guy who hugged Vin Scully yesterday. We're going to see you guys in the stands. Let us know what you think about these playoffs. Take care, Long Beach.
L'chaim.